So Kabbalah is a vast subject. Today we focus on understanding it intellectually, as well as having the mystical experience of the union with God through the names of God, through the ascent of the tree of life, climbing Jacob's ladder, the ladder of the 10 sephirot, touching the very inner faces of God. We'll start with this first slide. And the reason I started with this first slide is a classic picture of the mystic who desires to break through the illusion of Maya and understand the inner workings of the universe, who seeks the direct experience and union with the Almighty. This is the ultimate goal of the Jewish mystic, an intimate oneness with God, known as devahut, or mystical cleaving to God. That's the mystical cleaving to God. Devahut is a continuous attachment or adhesion to God, a perpetual being with God, an intimate union and conformity of the human and divine will. Some Kabbalists describe prophecy as the highest level of devahut. We'll now go to slide 2. Kabbalists accomplished an amazing feat by devising a way of understanding the vast personality of God, of which you and I are a part. Jewish mystics diagram the 10 aspects of God as a network of 10 spheres called the tree of life, which we have depicted in this slide here. We will now move to slide 3. Kabbalah teaches that the light emanated from Ein Sof into creation produced 10 different levels or spiritual principles, with each subordinate level derived from an emanation from its immediate superior. Kabbalists have used many synonyms for these 10 spheres, the 10 sephirot including lights, names, stages, crowns, mirrors, sources, veils, vessels, degrees, and the inner faces of God. The inner faces of God, I love that. Also remember that sephirot is plural. It's the plural form of the singular noun sephira. Now you can see this, before we move from this slide, see this diagram, you can see that the Ein Sof is the circles above it. There are different levels, different ways of describing it. Ein Sof could be described in terms of Buddhism of sunyata, or the undifferentiated suchness. It's the unknowable God above that emanated the tree of life below, the 10 sephirot. And then there's a little counterfeit tree of life underneath, which we won't be able to go too much in today, but that's the counterfeit evolution that the left-handed path took. So this diagram is a very good one, I thought. On to slide 4. The tree of life is the central image of Kabbalistic meditation, using the sephirot as a roadmap of consciousness. The 10 sephirot are the key to understanding God's attributes and his relationship to the world, and above all, the key to redemption. Now, as you see this slide here, you can meditate on the reason the tree is upside down. Where do the roots come from? Think about. Our great Lord Mahachohan has told us, your messenger has provided the names of God as they pertain to the fruits of the tree of life, the sephirot. Thus, the beginning of the recitation is from the door of the mother, Malkhut, Shekinah. Rising in order of the names of God, you internalize each name, and the name is God. Ascending the ladder, truly Jacob's ladder, you arrive at the point of Tiferet and continue ascending to the point of Keter. This exercise, beloved, establishes you in all levels of the sephirot of the tree of life. Guru Ma, we're going to be on this slide for a little bit. Guru Ma gave names for God, the sephirot and Ein Sof, that come to us in the great tradition of Judaism. These names are keys. As you pour your devotion to God through that name, it's like you now have a different shaped cookie cutter to add to your collection when making Christmas cookies. And so the cookies are going to come out a different shape. And so the light that pours to you through that sephira, that particular one, is going to be a unique vibration. And you will come to the place where you may intone the names of the sephirot, and you can stay and you can say that you can tell what is that distinct and separate vibration of God among the 10 vibrations that you're receiving through that particular name. Knowledge of the name of God is empowerment. God has empowered his people through many ages. By that we have learned to expand the flowers of our chakras. Each time we invoke a new name, we assess and access a portion of God's self that was previously beyond our reach. But when you truly and profoundly understand the name and that facet of God, you will find that you can put on and become that facet of God. Now we'll move on to slide 5. The tree of life is traditionally depicted with sephirot placed on 3 pillars, as you can see here, or columns, that represent the divine principles which govern them. The 3 columns take on qualities of their own. The columns on the right pillar is the pillar of mercy. The column on the left is the pillar of judgment, or the pillar of severity. These 2 columns are associated with the opposing forces in the universe. The extremes, the right pillar embodies the force of expansion, and the left pillar embodies the force of constraint. These pillars and extremes are balanced by the sephirot in the center column, called the pillar of compassion, or the pillar of equilibrium. The balancing and harmonizing of the extremes of mercy and judgment through compassion is what sustains our world. Slide number 6. Sephirot also appear in the form of primordial man, or what I would call the supernal man, known as Adam Kadmon, or some people say Adam Kadmon, but the correct pronunciation is Adam Kadmon. The sephirot are the divine original of that image and likeness of God in which we are made. Slide 7. The sephirot correspond to the chakras, the centers of light in your etheric body. Both the sephirot and the chakras step down God's energy for use. You can see the correspondences here to the 7 chakras. Slide 8, please. Kabbalists also group the sephirot on the tree of life, arranging them in 3 descending triads along the pillars, each of which expresses a unique element of the personality of God. You can see the triads as they move down from the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and then Malkhut stands on her own. Okay, we're going to go to slide 9. The first triad is made up of Keter, Chokmah, and Binah, and represent the realm of the intellect. And all 3 represent Adam Kadmon's head, which you can see there. Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's all right. The first sephira, Keter, which you can see at the top of the triad there, which adheres closely to Ein Sof, and we call Keter, known as the crown. In Kabbalism, Keter is the first and highest sephira on the tree of life. Keter is the product of the contraction of Ein Sof into a singularity of infinite energy, or limitless light. Keter represents the first impulse of the hidden, unmanifest Ein Sof, which sets in motion the process of becoming revealed. Keter is a primordial energy out of which all things are created. Okay, now we can go to slide 10. Like the Kabbalists of old, the Ascended Masters have drawn a diagram that illustrates your divine nature and our relationship to God and the sephirot. This diagram is called the chart of your divine self. The Ascended Masters also refer to it as the tree of life. Slide 11. The Ascended Masters teach that Keter corresponds to the I am presence in the chart of your divine self. And you can see that here in the top, Keter, that very upper sphere in the center of the divine monad there. The light of Keter is a transcendent and transforming light. But before we can receive this frequency, we must assimilate the essence of the 9 lower sephirot. This we accomplish under the tutelage of the Ascended Masters, who initiate us through the 10 stages of the sephirot from the root of Malkhut to the crown of Keter. Slide 12. The name of God associated with Keter, I am, is Aya, or Aya Asher Ayer, I am that I am. Aya Asher Ayer also has been translated as I am who I am what I am, or I will be what I will be. And I think it's important that we see the original language that these things were derived in, as the masters have told us that important to understand, or at least some familiarity with these ancient languages of Sanskrit, Hebrew, so on and so forth. Guru Ma says that Ayer Asher Ayer means to me, I am being. I will reveal myself in the unfolding of events, for you cannot know me as pure being. You can only know me as I make myself known to you through my actions. Slide 13. Now we're going to look at the second sephirot there on the right side. From Keter is produced the will to create, the second of the sephirot known as Chokmah, which is the first ray of divine light to appear outside of Keter. And since Keter is concealed, Chokmah is the first sephira that is knowable. And as we heard in our reading from the Zohar before, everything that is ever to be already exists in that infinitesimal point as it emerges within God as the first defined being. Therefore, it is called beginning, the first utterance of all. Beyond that point, nothing is known. Next slide. The name of God associated with Chokmah is Yah, which translates as the eternal. When we say Hallelujah, it literally means praise Yah. Next slide. In Kabbalist tradition, the third sephira, Binah, is personified as the supernal mother. Binah is also the essence of redemption, freedom, and many other kinds of salvation. Binah is the womb of creation and contains within it the potential of the entire cosmos. Next slide. The name of God associated with Binah is Elohim. Elohim. Kabbalah teaches that the names of God are keys to understanding the secret meaning of the Bible. According to the Zohar, those opening words of the Old Testament we're also familiar with, Barashit bara Elohim, in the beginning God created, are not about the creation of the world, but about the creation of Binah. The Zohar says, Barashit bara Elohim really means by means of the beginning, a code name for Chokmah, the hidden emanator, either Ein Sof or Keter, created Elohim, a code name for Binah. Very interesting when you get a really higher perspective on things. Next slide. Now you see on the screen the second triad formed by Hesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet, which represents God's ethical perfection and moral power. Hesed and Gevurah are two sides of the divine personality, free-flowing love and strict judgment, grace and limitation. Ideally, a balance is achieved through the central sephira of this triad, Tiferet, which you can see in the middle on the bottom there. Hesed, usually translated as love or mercy, but it can be translated as grace or loving kindness, can also be called Gadula or greatness instead of Hesed. Its nature is masculine. Hesed is the right arm of Adam Kamon and is located in the center of the pillar that bears its name of mercy. You can see there in the lower right, Hesed and its positioning on the body of Adam Kamon. Next slide. The name of God associated with Hesed is El, meaning absolute mercy. In times of trouble, the saints and the pious would hasten to pray and direct their thoughts to the attribute El, thus saving the world from many kinds of tribulation. Next slide. Excuse me, go back to 17 for a second, please. Okay, 17.
Right.
Okay. The fifth sephira, Gevurah, was created as a balancing force, the power to limit and control the abundance of God's goodness and mercy by limiting Chesed's expansion. Gevurah is the power of God and means strength or severity. The sephira is frequently called din or deen, meaning judgment or justice. Its nature is feminine. Gevurah is Adam Kamon's left arm and located in the center of the pillar that bears its name, the pillar of severity of judgment. Gevurah is capable of meting out punishment. Okay, now slide 19, sorry. The name Kabbalists associate with Gevurah is Elohim. Elohim. Scholars say Elohim means powerful, strong, or foremost, giving Elohim the meaning, the strong one, the mighty one, or the foremost one. Those roots all indicate that the name Elohim expresses the fullness of God's powers and describes a God who presides over all other gods, gods with a lowercase g. Elohim represents justice and judgment. Elohim takes revenge against the wicked who rebel against the Lord, Yad He Vav He. The origin of evil is explained by the relationship and the tension that exists between this fourth and fifth sephira and sephirot, Hesed and Din. That is Gevurah also. Din is Gevurah, but Gevurah has judgment. As they emerge from Binah, we don't have the time to cover this today, so I refer you to Mother's book on Kabbalah, which contains a detailed, fascinating explanation of the process of the origins of evil, which Mother said, El Morya has told us, is highly accurate. Slide 20. The fusion of mercy, chesed, and power, Gevurah, results in the sixth sephira, Tiferet, beauty or adornment. So you can see Tiferet is in the very beginning of the picture on both the right and left. It sits really smack in the middle of everything. Tiferet is the source of all beauty here below. The middle pillar of the tree of life takes its name from Ramamim, compassion, another title for Tiferet. Tiferet occupies a central position in the tree of life and represents wholeness and balance. Tiferet is the mediator who brings into harmony the extremes of mercy and judgment. Tiferet is the torso of Adam Kamon and the trunk of the tree of life. Slide 21. The Ascended Masters teach that Tiferet corresponds to the universal Christ, who is individualized in each of us as the higher self, or Holy Christ self, which you can see there in the middle figure of the chart. Slide 22. The name of God Kabbalists associate with Tiferet is Yod He Vav He, which is considered to be the greatest name of God, the name from which all other names spring. Is also the name of God most frequently used in the Old Testament. English versions of the Old Testament generally translate Yod He Vav He as Lord, with the Ord part in small capital letters, or as Jehovah, although the masters have told us Jehovah is an erroneous pronunciation of Yod He Vav He. Scholars believe it was probably originally pronounced as Yahweh. Slide 23. We now turn to the lower sephirot and the third triad of Netzah, Hod, and Yesod, which represent the material universe in its multiplicity of forms. Netzah, the seventh sephira, means triumph or victory. It is the lowest sephira on the pillar of mercy. Netzah is also translated as endurance. Think of the scripture that said, mercy endureth forever. Hod, the eighth sephira, means majesty or splendor. It is the lowest sephira on the pillar of judgment. Netzah and Hod are counterparts to one another. Netzah is Adam Kadmon's right leg, and Hod his left. And both are earthly versions and channels for the higher sephira, Chesed and Gevurah. Netzah represents God's active grace, and Hod the manner in which judgment of the deity is dispensed on earth. 24. Adonai Tseravot, Lord of hosts, is the divine name associated with Netzah, and the divine name associated with Hod is Elohim Tsevarot, God of hosts. Elohim, sephirot, is the name of God used frequently by the prophets, and it is said that the prophets draw their prophecies from both Netzah and Hod. Sephirot means hosts or armies. When sephirot is attached to either Elohim or Adonai, it depicts God as the divine warrior, as a supreme commander over all heavenly and earthly forces, the God who is transcendent, exalted, and omnipotent. Netzah and Hod fuse into the ninth sephira, Yesod, 25. So you can see here, Hod and Netzah bring their energies into Yesod. Yesod represents the principle of stability and the foundation upon which all creation rests. Yesod symbolizes the connection between the material and the spiritual worlds, the axis mundi, if you will, channeling the light, power, and blessing of the preceding sephirot through him to the last and 10th sephira, 26. The names of God associated with Yesod are El Hai, living God, also Shaddai, Almighty, who is known as the fount of living waters because it sustains all creatures. The patriarchs knew God by the name El Shaddai, meaning God Almighty. When God appeared to Abraham to announce that he would make his covenant with him, he said, I am El Shaddai, walk before me and be thou perfect. 27. Malkhut, the 10th and lowest sephira, is the feminine polarity of the Godhead. And while both Binah, the 3rd sephira, and Malkhut are cast in the role of divine mothers, Binah is known as the upper mother, and Malkhut is known as the lower mother. Malkhut is also known as Shekinah, which means the indwelling presence of God in creation. Boy, we all need Malkhut, huh? Malkhut serves as both the channel through which the divine forces of the sephirot flow downward to this world, enabling our existence, and also as the gate through which we on earth reach upward to God. And while in our world she is the uppermost point, in the world of the sephirot she is the lowest point, and thus Adam Kamon's feet. It is essential that we acquaint ourselves with the divine feminine principle embodied in Malkhut and become her devotee and her manifestation, because it is by means of this emanation, which is channeled across the abyss from God to man. Through this sephira, individuals are able to retrace the path to God and bridge the abyss of the astral plane of death and hell. She is the door through which man must pass to reach the other sephirot. Cleaving to Malkhut is one of the keys to assessing the hidden power of the sephirot. 28. The name of God associated with Malkhut is Adonai, Adonai. When applied to God, Adonai is a title of honor that denotes God's absolute lordship, and it is said that the wise draw their wisdom from Adonai. 29. The lower figure in the chart representing your soul corresponds to Malkhut, the sephira that represents the physical universe, the physical body, the soul, and the point where spiritual and physical forces meet. That'll be the end of our slideshow. We have been given these 10 keys as the names of God for connecting the sephirot, and with them you can open many gates, sealed with many locks. These names of God are keys for your mystic ascent up the tree of life. Each name is capable of opening another gate of light in another dimension of God's vast consciousness. Let us